I feel like if I put out a poll and asked every coach in the country, what's one question you would want to ask Huddle? I feel like it would be, is old Huddle ever going away?
That is the number one question I got asked at pretty much every convention this year. It was really fun though, because so all the head coaches I talked to, they would come up and be like, all right, be real with me. Is Classic going away soon? And do I got to learn new Huddle? And I'm like, well, we're trying to make sure that there is feature parity and that there is comfortable and similar workflows. We are investing a lot more in new Huddle than we are on the Classic side of things. And so
Guest on the Left Hash Call is one of the rare people who lives in both worlds that matter most in modern football. He's been inside Hudl since the early days, one of the very first employees helping shape how coaches across the country watch film, teach their players, recruit athletes, and run their programs day to day. But he's not just building tools for football, he is still coaching it. He's currently calling the offense and working with quarterbacks at Concordia University in Nebraska while leading competitive strategy at Hudl, bridging what happens in the meeting room, on the practice field, and inside the software. From the era of DVD exchange to cloud-based breakdown, AI-assisted tagging, wearables, and streaming, he's lived in every phase of how football actually gets taught and run. The Senior Vice President of Competitive at Hudl and play caller on Saturdays, Greg Nelson. How are you today, man?
I'm good, Seth. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So nice to meet you. I know we've connected kind of via social media a little bit, but so nice to meet you in Charlotte at the AFCA convention and then again over there in Lincoln. But how are things today? What's the day look like for you today?
It's kind of like coaching in that every day is a little bit different at Hudl. Whatever problems come up that you need to address, you get after it. So today I get to talk with you and meet with a couple different members of our team. Other days I'm out traveling to different conventions and clinics, and I just got off of about a 3-week stretch of hitting just different conventions everywhere. So from volleyball to soccer to football to the athletic directors convention. So it was a lot of fun to be with our users.
It's one of the things about Hudl that I think as a football coach and as a former player, sometimes you don't realize all the sports and all the things that go into Hudl and all the teams that you serve as well. I'm assuming that sometimes it's kind of difficult to like, man, we got, I know there's different systems, there's different products for different sports. Is it difficult kind of keeping track of all those? But I obviously being the football coach as well. Is there any, challenges with there being this many sports involved?
It's definitely stretches our focus, and we got to make sure we have the right expertise to kind of lead each product, because every tool needs to be best in class for that sport, right? The Nebraska volleyball team, who has goals of winning a national championship in volleyball, like they want the very best tools for their program, the same way that the Millard South High School in Omaha here wants to, and we want to win a state championship in high school football. So we got to be the best at a lot of different things, which requires some different focus. And then usually it's a little bit of a cyclical thing. Trade-offs is, hey, we move the ball forward over here. Maybe we move, spend a little bit more time on this sport or get these sports up to parity with some of our other offerings, and just trying to continue to lean on our users for feedback on where we can get better and improve, and just keep investing in those different things.
In my 2 years of coaching, I always felt like, and I was always I was a film guy both times, and so I regularly was meeting regularly was offering feedback where I could, because I always love giving feedback. And I always felt like there was at least little tweaks that were made that always made lives easier. And I think that's what you guys are all about at Hudl. And I want to go back to some of the early days at Hudl. You've been at Hudl since 2010, very early in the company. What did that first version of Hudl look like versus what it's turned into today?
Yeah, so I actually was a high school coach before I started at Hudl. I just graduated in May. I didn't really have a full-time gig, and I was I was volunteering for a local Lincoln high school here. The head coach paid me to mow lawns, and so that was kind of my job. And so got through that first season, and I was the DVD guy. Like, we didn't have Hudl. There were only 250 teams that were using Hudl that first season anyways, and so I was the guy who drove to McDonald's and exchanged the DVD and then sprinted home to make sure it wasn't a blank DVD or something was wrong with it. And then make all the copies to send out to everybody. And so over Christmas break that year, Hudl Hudl had an opening from a support position perspective, and I threw my name in. I was a little bit familiar with it from my time as a student assistant at Nebraska, because that was where they had kind of been beta testing things and just getting stuff set up there. And so I got hired there. And when you start in a 16-person startup, everybody's got to do a little bit of everything. So while I was like, oh, my role is going to be support, answering phone calls and emails. Again, it was whatever needed to be done that day. If it was going to a coaching clinic, I traveled 6 weeks in a row that very first year to go to every Glacier clinic I could. I stuck my head in to listen to some talks too. So it was, again, mixing both sides a little bit, which was great. But then, everybody has to test the product and help build the product. And so that first year we went from 250 football teams using it to about 2,000. And so every day it was something new, training a different team on how to use it. The second year we went from 2,000 to 5,000 teams using Hudl. And then the third year we went from 5,000 to 10,000. And so pretty quickly we went from no one knowing what Hudl was or having heard about it to a majority of all high school football teams using it, which also created some awesome opportunities. It basically got rid of the DVD delivery guy overnight in that you could just, with a couple clicks, send everything. And so it was really fun to also be a coach in that time, because like I said, I went from being that guy who had to drive to McDonald's to with a couple clicks, now we can just pretty much get any video that we want, that we have on our schedule from the teams that we play. And so it was a fun journey, and I think that we continue to move the ball forward with everything that we're doing today. But the rapid adoption of the product back then was just a really fun ride to be on. Again, it wasn't without its bumps. Every weekend, going into the fall season when stuff just has to work because coaches are with their teams or, trying to prepare for their game. If something doesn't go exactly right, you hear about it, and you got to make sure you can fix it as fast as possible. So we were all really on call pretty much 24/7 back then anyways.
Yeah, it does sound like coaching a little bit that first time, because, I remember doing, thinking, okay, I'm just gonna dip my toe in the water here, and then it's like, hey, you're swimming in the deep end pretty quickly. But I was chatting with someone about this, but throughout my entire football life, whether I was playing as a 15-year-old or whether I was a coach in college, it felt like there was one constant in that entire deal, and it always felt like Hudl was always kind of there during that entire time. And I feel like a lot of people can probably say that, no matter where they've been, obviously, different teams have different workflows in college and professionals, but there's always kind of been that one solid foundation and infrastructure behind how they teach. And that's definitely Hudl. And I'm curious, what you think the biggest leap that you guys have made since originally, starting, basically just film is obviously something that I know you guys are trying to be more than just the film workflow now. What was kind of the biggest jump that you guys have taken?
Yeah, to me, it revolves around capture. Football has always been ahead of the curve on the other sports with filming. They're always, even way back in 2010, people were filming multiple angles and getting that all intercut. And so football, I think, has always been a little bit ahead of the curve in just of their sophistication and how they use video and how much video that they capture, every practice and everything like that. So it's been fun to see that go to other sports too, where if we can take the burden of finding somebody to film, teaching somebody how to use an end zone camera, figuring out how to, fly a drone at practice these days now, the more that we can just take off of those coaches' plates, I think the more time they get to spend teaching the kids how to be able to be, maximize their potential. But we've kind of made it so there's really no excuse to not have an opportunity to improve now. Anytime you step on a field, there's likely a Hudl camera on the field that you're stepping on. And so with the click of a button, you should be able to record video of that workout, that drill, that practice, that game, and use it to improve. And so to me, that is where we've moved the starting line forward the furthest. But I think everything that we talk about is how do we move that starting line further for coaches, like take more stuff off of their plate. So from breakdown to video replay to play drawing to everything that we do now, again, we're just trying to move that ball forward and take a little bit more off their plate. And I think we're really starting another wave of innovation that will be on the level of capture with just what we're seeing in AI in terms of automatically tagging video, but then also being able to understand the data that everybody has access to now. Because that's the other great thing about football coaches. If you can see it, you can break it down. Where are they lined up? Are they inside the hash, outside the hash? Which foot is up? Which hand is down? They break down everything. And so the more that we can automate in that process, the more time that they can use to plan and make decisions and teach.
I'm curious what that practically will look like eventually because one thing that I've like Huddle Assist was always my best friend. I loved using Huddle Assist because it just saves time, and I think that's a big part of what Huddle is all about is saving time of coaches. And I'm curious from everybody calls things different. Everybody's got different terminologies. Everybody calls maybe a concept differently or a coverage maybe differently, but I'm curious what that process looks like of, hey, this team calls this play this thing. Obviously, you guys do that with formations, but I'm wondering how that translates into, hey, this is a play. Like this is Y cross or this is cover four. And obviously there's nuances to everything, but at least getting close. Is that something that you guys are actively thinking about? And how would that look?
So where we view our specialty right now is in a lot more of the objective data rather than the subjective data. So like, was this a run or a pass? Obviously, it was an RPO and it could have been a run or a pass. We lean on the result right now to help give you the tendencies for that. But we also understand that coaches need to be able to aggregate that data into something higher. Like, okay, this was an RPO and here's the times they made this decision. Here's the different attachments they had on this run play. And so I think we'll always be further ahead on the objective side of things, but I do think there is more information that we're going to be able to pull out around the subjective side with what the result was or where things ended up. So I just think of what we can offer with our IQ product, which is mainly used by professional and college teams right now. We basically chart where every single pass went in terms of in the field, and then where on the receiver it went, and then was it caught or was it not caught? Was there a defender they had to throw over or not? And so I think once you have that level of detail, you can start to piece together some of those situations where, okay, when they're seeing like a cover four shell, this is where the ball ends up. And so you can kind of connect the two objective things together, if you will, knowing that there's a lot of subjectivity in between there. That's where I think we'll probably shine. But it's also why I don't think there's a concern on this, but it's like, if we talk about AI replacing jobs or replacing workflows, it's like that. Yeah. There's always going to need to be that subjective eye and the person who can communicate the insights that data provides. Like, we can get the data, we can get reports to basically articulate exactly the trends and the tendencies that are in the data for you, but you still have to be able to communicate it to, in college, 18 to 22-year-olds and make sure they understand it and they're motivated and they know how to change their role and responsibility. I don't think that's going to get replaced anytime soon. And so I really do view it as that this wave of AI coming is going to be a great marriage of all of the data and information that coaches have at their fingertips, making it way more accessible and usable to teach athletes.
Yeah, it's certainly not one of those things that, hey, we're going to take jobs away from coaches. I don't see that. It's to make the lives of the coaches that are there easier. And somebody's still going to always have to teach it. Somebody's still always going to have to manage it. You being one of those teachers and coaching currently, I'm wondering, first of all, how has that always been something that you've continued to want to do? And on top of that, being so involved with Hudl and coaching, has that been a good bridge of kind of a true test of, hey, is this thing continuing to work for me and for what I try to do? Because, hey, I'm the modern coach just like everybody else.
Yeah, it's something that I've done the entire time I've worked at Hudl. Like I said, I when I was a student assistant at Nebraska, that's kind of where the coaching bug bit me, and I was like, I knew I want to be around this and find ways to help. And so it's been really fun to be along Hudl's journey at the same time. And I would say that we live true to our values, and that we want to listen to users. We want to be on the front lines with them, and there's no better way to be on the front lines than if you're coaching and using our product on a daily basis. And we have that across every sport. I mean, we have tons of basketball coaches, volleyball coaches, soccer coaches on staff too. So it's not just a football thing from that side of it, but it's been interesting because when you're building a product, you've got to build it for scale and for, all 18,000 high school football teams that are out there, all 2,000 college football teams that are out there. Everybody uses it a little bit different, to your point. And so where I've had to learn is like my feedback is one of the 20,000, and hopefully it's representative of a good slice of the crew that's using it. But if we just did everything that I said, it wouldn't be a great product anyways. It might be a great product for me, but it probably wouldn't be a great product for you or anybody else. And so trying to find those commonalities in the workflows has been something that I think our team really specializes on. And we make it a strong point to just every day. We're getting user feedback on the product every day. I mean, we don't lack for feedback on things that we can improve for sure from that side of it. But our team also does a really good job of diving deep and sitting on calls and watching somebody do their workflow for a couple of hours, and something that might be mundane to everybody else is actually important. If we can save them a tab when they're breaking down data or a click when they're trying to make a note, that stuff compounds really dramatically for coaches. And so it's been fun to be on that journey to help figure out where some of that is. I can a lot of times point to that, that click or that tab that we could remove. But it's also good because I get to see the just broader technological evolution, and then I can kind of compare that to what my experience as a coach has been. And that's where something like an assist comes from. Is football was not actually the first sport that we automated the breakdown of that sport for. Basketball was. And some of it was because basketball is a little bit more of a controlled environment. It's a little bit more data driven, and that, a 2-point percentage, 3-point percentage, like where the shots are coming from on the floor, like all that stuff has just been really ingrained in basketball from day one. I was really passionate about us being able to do this for football. And so our first version of Hudl Assist was actually me breaking down some games after my season was done as just like a beta test. We reached out to some schools and said, would this be interesting to you? They had some games coming up. And so I basically just spent my entire weekends breaking down like 20 games. Me and a designer on our team did that. And we got to the end of the week and we're like, okay, we can't do this by ourselves. We got to be able to find some automation here. We got to be able to find some just ways to be able to reuse that data. And so being able to build up the team that can tag and to automate some of that stuff has been really rewarding on the journey. 10 years ago, that wasn't possible, but we knew coaches would want and find value in that. And now we're just continuing to push the ball forward in terms of what we can automate and add to that.
You talk about capture being one of the main priorities. When it comes to rolling out a product like the Focus and putting that in trying to get that in every stadium in the country, what does that process look like from inception? Hey, this is something we want to do, to installing the first one on an actual stadium, to making updates and making sure it consistently, works how it should?
Yeah, it's a long journey, and it's taken a bunch of different turns too. So we first got into the capture space through an acquisition. We acquired a company called Incotect. They're based in the Netherlands, actually, and they had a prototype, and that was about it. It was basically 2 giant shoe boxes. Both had one camera in them, and they would mount them, and they would record a soccer game or a field hockey game, and that was kind of their test. And so we said, okay, this should be able to be applicable for pretty much every sport. And so the high school that I coach at, we had acquired them. I think it was in the late fall, early winter. And so for a basketball season, we went and mounted on a scissor lift to the gym in the high school that I coached at, these 2 giant shoe boxes, and said, okay, we could do an indoor version of this. And so then prototypes rolled out. I think if you come to the Hudl office, you might have seen it too. We have kind of pretty much every version, every prototype that we've ever had for our focus camera, from indoor to outdoor to our portable version. We kind of keep them as little just trophies to show that, hey, we have made a lot of progress on the way. And the first version is never going to be what the final version looks like. And so we nailed it for indoor first. Indoor is way easier, way more controllables, less variation with the weather, with the lighting, with all that kind of stuff. The light's always the same inside. The position's always the same inside. The field doesn't move. Somebody doesn't, if it's a grass field, draw the lines a little differently this week than they did last week. Everything's the same. And so in football, it came after that, but we had to do a lot of work to understand, okay, how do we calibrate to field lines? How do we adjust for lighting that happens when every game's played at 7 p.m. on a Friday night and the sun's going down? So now you have sun in the eye of the camera, and then now it's totally dark by the end of the game. How do we adjust for that? And so just trying to find the right solution for outdoors. There's a lot of things that you wouldn't even think about where, okay, well, how do we protect it from birds sitting on it? How do we protect it from a kid just hitting it with a ball? And so going through those iterations, I think made it better. But at the same time, it was all about how can we just replace the person who's having to find a kid 5 minutes before kickoff, roll up with the tripod, and then they're missing the action. They're talking over the video. Now we have something that's repeatable and exchangeable. So now you just feel really confident that you're always going to have the exact copy of the video that you need. You don't need to bring stuff on the road. You can get access to whatever you need to on that. And so it was a very, very long journey from acquisition to actual implementation. The other thing that drove a lot of the adoption was actually streaming. And so especially during COVID, people weren't able to go to games or couldn't, see them. And so people wanted another way to be able to reach their audiences and their fans. And so that helped drive adoption of our cameras significantly too.
The other side of the capture now with football specifically is the tight shot and the behind, the butt shot essentially. And I'm wondering how things are different with coming up with something like that. I know it's not fully. I'm not sure where it is in the process with that, but what's kind of the differences between, hey, let's just stick a huddle focus up behind like we normally would. Like what is that? What's that kind of process like versus a normal focus?
Yeah. So the end zone camera is officially launching this fall, but we did a beta with about 200 teams this past year, and there are so many differences. And first of all, in terms of mounting location, I think fixed is always going to be. I understand coaches use portable end zone cameras right now. Lugging that along is not something people are super fired up to do. And if we could get it into a situation where everything is fixed, I think that's the best situation for every coach and every team. But so your mounting locations are just so much more limited from an end zone angle, and so figuring out. Do we help them figure out how to install a pole? Is the scoreboard close enough to get a great angle to it? Do they have an adjacent building that maybe has power that they can attach it to? And so there is a plethora of potential mounting options that we see in the end zone that we just don't see on for the sideline camera, because on the sideline it's usually a press box and there's usually power and Ethernet there already as a part of that. From a tracking perspective, it's also just very different because usually for your tight shot, you don't necessarily have all 22 in the video. Your calibration is different because you can't see all the end zone, all the corners of the end zone at the same time. And you need enough zoom to be able to shoot 200 yards away based on where it's mounted, but also potentially 20 yards away. And so that requires a different camera than everything happening between call it 50 and 100 feet away from the camera. And so it requires a different camera, a different mounting option, different types of tracking software on it. And so it's been a fun process to build that and to see that come to fruition. And then we also have the ability to just manually control it if you need to. If you don't trust the algorithm or it's not dialed into how you guys want to do it yet, we can always still give you the manual control without you having to bring a giant thing to set up and train somebody how to do it. They just use an Xbox controller to control and follow the action if they want to.
Greg, I tell you what, my last year coaching at Simpson, we still had I think they still do have it, but we had a tower from I don't know, 1920 it felt like, and we were in Dubuque and it was super windy, and sure enough, that thing just blew over and we didn't have any film. And so we're looking at the other film, the other filmer that also had a tower, and that thing was almost about to blow over too. And I was like, man, it'd be nice if everybody had an end zone camera that was sitting somewhere and we all just uploaded it to the same thing. If you're on the road, you don't have to bring film and you just upload that. If you're at home, it all just gets uploaded the same thing. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but that is, it's good to hear. I'm happy to hear that is something that is soon to be rolled out. And you talk about another acquisition, and that is of Titan, and bringing those fellows along here. What was that process like, and how have you guys started to integrate that into what you guys do now at Hudl?
Yeah. So GPS wearables has always been something we've tried to keep our eye on. We have an offering in I'll call it the elite soccer space. Our WeMove product that we've had for a few years is used there. It's high end in the sense of like the extra sensors and stuff that they have in the device also make it prohibitive from a cost perspective if you're trying to scale it to 100 football players or something like that. And so I've always tried to keep my eye out for what's interesting happening in the space. And I actually used Titan as a coach before we acquired them at Hudl. I was just like, this is the awesome product, and I tried to get it for our team at Concordia. And so we started with 5 devices, and just the insights that we were able to gain pretty much instantly changed how we coached. So the very first thing that we noticed was how much running we were doing in pregame. And it changed basically how we do our entire pregame routine. We found that, for a total game, we were running 5 or 6 miles. And in our first game, 2 of that was in warmups. It's like, okay, we're doing that wrong. We're running literally a third of the entire distance before we've even kicked the ball off. Like something's off with that. And so we've tweaked our pregame, we've tweaked our timing on all that kind of stuff. The other thing it's helped us at Concordia with is just understanding top speed. Are athletes actually hitting their top speed during practice? Are we doing the injury prevention thing right? Are we inoculating our hamstrings, if you will? And so it was cool to see the Titan crew have I'll just call it like a base of users that really leaned into it from an injury prevention and a speed training perspective. And so we bought into that from a Concordia perspective pretty hard. But I think the insights that you gain from that, whether you subscribe to those specific philosophies or not, are so valuable to keep players healthy and to make sure that you're maximizing performance, that it feels like something that just needs to be paired with video in the right ways. And once we do that, I think it also unlocks another layer of coaching, but also talent identification. Hey, are we playing the right guys? Are we recruiting the right guys? I know that there's an element of small college football that is, you need to have the right guys on the roster, and you want to fit from a culture perspective. But the idea of diamonds in the rough that you're able to uncover because you know that this kid runs 20 miles an hour versus 19 miles an hour with a pad on, I feel like that's kind of insights that will trickle all the way down, and they won't just be for D1 teams to be able to utilize that data, which right now that's kind of the case, I feel like.
I'm not sure if you've heard this story or not, but so at River Falls, they obviously won the national championship and had the Gallardi Trophy winner in 2024. So the year before, Caleb Blaha, the starting quarterback, he was having a ton of hamstring injuries, couldn't get through the season essentially. Coach Walker over there, he's like, I'm going to buy one Titan system essentially out of my own pocket because we need to make sure this kid's staying healthy. They get it. And, originally, they're trying to figure out what's the best way to use this. And he's getting through it. And they just kept finding that the game speed and the game load was not the same as when they were practicing. And he would not hit that number. And so what they started to do is if he wouldn't hit this specific number, they would have what's called quarterback run club. And all the quarterbacks would then go and basically run sprints with the offensive coordinator, basically in between practices essentially, and to hit that number. It's like, go figure, no injuries, has a great season, one of the best seasons in history of college football. And it's just insane to see like how, technology worked there. Like that's exactly like what it was designed for and actually what it was used for. I know that, being at convention, I saw some different integrations too within the film as well, and trying to pair that all seamlessly and say, hey, this play, we had, all these guys. I'm curious, like, how that continues to evolve over time.
Yeah, the first thing that we're trying to do is integrate it directly with video. So Titan has an awesome dashboard there. You can see, again, what was my player's top speed for the week? Or you can also see a 3D version of them on your practice field. Like, where were they running and what were they doing when they hit their top speed? And that's awesome. But I always think that if you connect it to video, all of a sudden it's way more actionable now, and other people can absorb it a little bit more easily than just seeing a giant dashboard full of data. And so our goal, and this is what we were demoing in Charlotte, was I want to be able to see when this kid hit his top speed for the entire game. What play was it on? What was he doing? Might be a kickoff. It might be a long pass play. It might be a long run play that broke. For a lot of our guys, we find that it's when they're on special teams, actually, because they're running 40 yards down the field. And if they're running back, they're rarely running 40 yards unless it's a breakaway touchdown, which is an awesome thing. And so the how often that load gets applied is something that we didn't really have context for before, but now being able to, I think, see it on video will help them understand, okay, here's when you're hitting your top speed, here's what your acceleration looks like when you're healthy, and what it looks like right now. And so we've got to make sure that matches up. I think it's just going to give you more teaching opportunities to be able to, like I said, match it with video. I think there's a huge recruiting impact there also, to be able to show, okay, this is when I hit my top speed, when I made a pick six or kickoff return for a touchdown. And I think coaches are going to want to see that when they're recruiting athletes too.
I tell you what, like that is and not to mention, me being the social media side of things, like I love seeing that stuff. People eat that up. It's like it's kind of what you see on TV with the AWS, and that's kind of a similar concept as well as, hey, you want to show the fans too, like, hey, this star player, he's hitting 21 miles an hour, and obviously there's other things that they do as well. But I just love that so much. And one thing I'm curious, with everything that Hudl does in all sports, what do you think still is the biggest time leak that football coaches still are going through? Even if they have every Hudl product, they do everything right. What do you think is still the biggest, maybe, I don't want to say time waster, but the thing that still holds up coaches in 2026?
I think it's a combination of the data entry side, because again, there's infinite number of things that you can break down, figuring out what are the actual impactful things. Everybody's got a little different philosophy on, and maybe they focus on something that's a little bit different. But the more that we can do to automate and accelerate that process, the better. Again, if it's like alignments of here's where the back was aligned, so you don't have to chart, well, was he ahead of him when he was in sidecar? Was he behind him when he was in sidecar? What was the different plays that they ran? The more that we can do to just show you what the field looks like in terms of alignment, I think we'll take some of that off of coaches' plates. And then the other piece is, okay, now that I have all my data, I have to spend so much time digging through it and say, is there a trend here or is there not a trend here? Okay, this is something that is actionable. It's like a material, number that we got to be able to pull out and share with the team. Anything that's 80% above, we could flag those. We can flag those for you automatically and say, you might want to take a look at these. Are some of them going to be obvious? It's like, hey, yeah, on third and long, they pass more than 80% of the time. Totally get that. But there might be some tendencies that you're not thinking about that if we can flag, hey, these are just high percentage for you, then you can dive in and say, okay, is this one important or is this one not? And not have to waste time saying, that was another 50-50 tendency. There's nothing there. Or there's nothing actionable that I can tell my guys about. So I think those are the two big things that we can do a better job of accelerating for coaches for sure.
I'm curious what you think about the in-game, basically the live adjustments, and how I know Hudl is actively trying to work on, the live coach essentially. Like, how do you guys want to continue to evolve in that space as far as, hey, we obviously the iPads and tablets are now readily available. You've always been able to track stats. I know we always got stats printed out to us, but I'm curious how that continues to evolve as far as maybe the analytics are concerned. Like, hey, analytics say go for it, right? Like, I wonder how that kind of evolves in the Hudl world, if at all.
So the two things that we're investing in the most heavily right now are, because we'll now have two angles of capture between end zone and the sideline. When we're pulling the video for that live review, we can actually automate the data generation of, was this a run or a pass? Was this an offensive or a defensive play? And then what yard line were they on? And usually once you have yard line, you can also guess what the gain loss was or what down it was and how that's changed from play to play. And so I think at a minimum, that information on there makes the data and the video more accessible in game. So now I just need to rip through my third downs really quick, and I can pull all of that up without having to have somebody tag that or flag that or anything like that. And just boom, we could create playlists and some of the individual reports there. Once you have that baseline, I think there's still a user level of data that they can input. That is, again, that more subjective layer that once they can put that on top, now it can uncover trends and pieces like that live. I know there's tools out there that do that. And some people just use spreadsheets also to be able to track some of that stuff live and not have to necessarily like type it in after the game. They could just import a CSV into Hudl. And those tools are awesome. But I think, again, the more that we're going to be able to do to automate that, the better and easier it is going to be for coaches. There's always going to be a subjective layer that if you're looking for some of those serious insights for, hey, this play is more efficient than that play, you're going to need to make an investment to enter. But if we know more about the state of play at that time, some of those things like, okay, this is the situation that you should be looking at, or this is more of a go for it, or this is when you should use your timeouts, are things that we can bring into the interface. A lot of the issues with trying to bring those things to the interface right now is a coach isn't necessarily looking at the video while the play is happening, right? They might be doing it after the drive. So if you're doing anything in that interface that suggests what they should do, they might not even see it until after they needed to do it. So I think there's a lot more if we can get integrated more into that in-game experience that we're going to be able to bring to coaches and just help make them more efficient too.
I imagine that falls for you are usually pretty busy being still a coach and obviously being with Hudl. I'm wondering how Hudl has changed your life as a coach. Obviously, you're trying to make coaches' lives easier. What's a work week look like for you when it comes to coaching? Every day at Concordia.
Yeah, not a lot of sleep, to your point, in the falls for sure. And once we usually get into a rhythm, usually you can kind of schedule things around and what you need to do. And it's helpful to have a very understanding head coach in Patrick Dabrico who wants us to be around. He's also entrepreneurial in nature. He started the headset app from his side too, and so he understands it and likes to be attached to the technology. And then I also have a great staff that I get to work with every day that is really a partner in helping build these game plans and debate things. Grady Cook, who's our O-line coach, is the one who is if I'm in between meetings for 5 minutes, I'm calling him. He's probably got something on a whiteboard, and we're saying, hey, I only got 5 minutes, but have we seen them do this, this, and this? Okay, what's our fix if they do these three things? And then when we'll get together later in the afternoon, then we'll have a list of stuff that went through our brains that day that we need to dig in on. And so Monday through Friday, we're rolling from 5 to 11, usually like 5 a.m. to 11, and I'll try to sneak in some football stuff right away in the morning. Usually right after I wake up, I am doing something specific. So on a Tuesday morning, I'm probably digging into what's our red zone plan. I'm going to watch every play from the 20 on in, and then at 5:45, I'll try to get a quick shower, get my kid up for school, get ready for school, and then head into the office. And usually it's all huddle all the time from, call it like 8 to 3. Again, there's some might be some breaks. There's some cross-pollination between the two, where maybe I do a lot of phone calls on the way into work or on the way to practice, just because that's when I have time. And then we have a great practice schedule, and that usually we're rolling from 3 to 6, and that covers our meetings and the time that we're on field and everything that we need to get done there. And so that means I can usually get home and handle bedtime and at least be around for a little bit at home. And then I'm usually diving right back into the film. And like I said, when there's some cross-pollination, there's times where, I got to hop out of practice for a minute to take a phone call, or I got to check a Slack message from something. In the same way that a player needed something, I got to call him over my lunch break, and maybe I talk to him really quick or do a quick Zoom call while I'm doing that. So it's fun, it's intense, but I like it because it's a perfect balance. You wouldn't think of it. A lot of people are like, well, doesn't that just burn you out? Coaching challenges me in a totally different way that I get challenged in a corporate setting. And so the skills are actually way more complementary than you would even think they are. Working in a professional environment, helping lead a team of a few hundred people who are focused on our competitive business unit, and the strategy to grow there is so similar to galvanizing a team, making a game plan, figuring out how you want to attack a certain market or certain space, or what you need to do to improve, analyze your self-scout, if you will. And then on the coaching side, figuring out how to motivate 18 to 22-year-olds and getting them bought in and helping communicate things in a really simple way. Those skills are one-to-one direct translation. So it's a lot of fun. It doesn't burn me out in that way. It more, like I said, challenges me and keeps me fresh and lets me use my brain in a lot of different ways. And then I know which devs I got to go bother if I see a bug or things like that, because I get to see that side of it. But I'm also on Twitter too, and so I Twitter is not a great place for dialogue, if you will. But don't worry, we see plenty of feedback on that, because usually that's my Twitter feed. Like, my Twitter feed is football coaches. So if I see a Hudl tweet, like it gets shared with our team, whether you guys want it to or not, from that side of it. But we definitely take everything seriously and evaluate all that kind of stuff too at that point. But a lot of it too is the same way that you would build a team, in that you got to focus on yourself and your process and continue to figure out how to continuously improve. Are you ever going to be perfect? That's not really the goal or how we're going to do it, but we're always going to keep them improving and figuring out how we can deliver more value to coaches on the Hudl side, and how we can be more competitive, meet our potential, and ultimately win more games on the coaching side.
I love that. I feel like if I put out a poll and asked every coach in the country, what's one question you would want to ask Hudl? I feel like it would be, is old Hudl ever going away?
That is the number one question I got asked at pretty much every convention this year. It was really fun though, because so all the head coaches I talked to, they would come up and be like, all right, be real with me. Is Classic going away soon? And do I got to learn new Hudl? And I'm like, well, we're trying to make sure that there is feature parity and that there is comfortable and similar workflows. We are investing a lot more in new Hudl than we are on the Classic side of things. And so things like that Titan integration or the AI reporting insights only are going to stay on that side. And so we always want to make sure that we're comfortable. And I'm sure at some point that we'll need to say, hey, we really do need to make this move. But I think this is the first year that I've seen the switch kind of flip for a lot of people, and that the younger coaches especially, and a lot of those head coaches be like, half of my staff uses new Hudl and they're all in on it and they get it. I probably need to get on the train too. And so we have a lot of resources that can help you make that switch, but also we're not done building that either. You know what I mean? So if there's feedback or there's workflows or specific things that you don't like or you don't make you comfortable yet, we want to hear that, because that's the areas that we're investing in. Everything from how is my library structured? I actually think there's going to be a lot more customization in terms of what you can do, how you can organize your video, how you handle camps, clinics, practices in new Hudl than there is in Classic. Like, Classic is a very structured data model, and we keep it that way. there's already some of the more functionality that you wouldn't expect in new Huddle around being able to separate the video and the data. The number one, somebody actually built a Chrome extension for this that was used for a few years, but now it just exists in new Huddle, where you can separate out the video and the data on two different screens if you want to. So you can have full screen video, and then a lot of people don't know that exists, but it's been a feature in new Huddle for basically 2 years now, and so there might be some reasons that you want to go try it. Me personally, I'm actually like a 50-50 guy. There's certain workflows that I do in new Huddle. There's certain workflows that I do in Classic still. And don't worry, our team has a list of every one of those and gets to hear about it all the time from what would get me to switch. But also we want to be cognizant, like everybody's got their own. Your Huddle account is kind of like your kitchen, whereas like if you just go in and I moved all your pots and pans around and you try to make dinner, you'd be a little pissed off. So we're not trying to necessarily force that, but we also understands like, here's a little bit more of a hopefully efficient way to do this. How can we make that transition as smooth as possible without, forcing people over there? Will there come a time where we probably need to say it's going to go away? Yeah. But I want that time to happen when it's pretty clear that new Huddle is a much better tool. If not, we just have to learn how to use it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was a big advocate early because early I felt like it was a lot easier to maneuver and at least for my techie key hands. Like I just felt like I could input data so much quicker than I could in Classic, which again, preaching to the choir on that. But for you, one of my last questions here is what is the thing with Hudl that you are most excited about going forward?
I like I said, I really think we're at the beginning of a wave of what AI can do for it. It was Sunday morning after a game. We won, and I was listening to a podcast from one of the founders of I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they were talking about the impact of AI on their business, and it was Intercom. That's what it was, Intercom, and how they just like fully leaned into AI, and they basically like left all of their old products in the past and leaned into what does a fully AI future look like. And so I spent some time thinking about what that looks like for Hudl and what I think that means for the football market going forward. And so I sent that off to our team on a random Sunday morning, and I think it paints a picture that like is a significant game changer for people. It's going to take a lot of work to realize it. Now, so don't get me wrong, it's not going to happen overnight, but I think being able to going just from I can walk on a field and I have every single angle of video captured to I have at my fingertips every single piece of video that I would ever want to look at from my own games, my opponent's games, or other games of offenses that do stuff similar to me, and it knows that these offenses do stuff similar to me so that I can learn from them. I think that is going to accelerate your preparation, accelerate your planning, all the way to, okay, now I have all my opponent's information. What are the tendencies I need to care about? How should I actually prioritize implementing these things for our kids? How should I change how I teach and having the system guide you along that way too? And so I don't know. I view it as like, it's actually just the beginning for what we can do with AI. And there's already coaches who do things like, download all of your data and throw it at ChatGPT and get some of the insights that way. I think having it fully integrated next to the video is the difference. So we not only are the place that is going to be able to have all of the video and the data around that, but we're going to be, in my opinion, the best place to be able to learn and identify tendencies and trends in that video and that data too. So that's what I'm most excited about. It gets me fired up about the future that we have. The new capture stuff, Titan stuff's awesome. But we're just at the beginning of a wave on this one, in my opinion.
Well, Greg, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I know it was fun to connect with you. It continues to be fun to, learn about Hudl and all the great things that you guys do. But can't thank you enough for coming on, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me. And I think the main thing I would want to leave you with too is if you do want to ask every coach that you come on what they want improved with Hudl, I'm happy to add it to our list and keep it on that side of it too. Like, and if any coaches need to reach out to me, I'm on Twitter too, so they can hit me up there.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it again. Thanks for everything that you do, making coaches' lives easier. I've been a big fan of Hudl since I was a player, and obviously now. But you're the man, and it's always great to connect.
No, I appreciate you, Seth. Have a good one.